Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. We are live.
we
Brad, man.
are rapping.
We're ramping. How you doing, man?
Good.
Yeah.
Doing a lot of walking
Mm-hmm.
out in the woods. Doing a lot of listening.
Mm-hmm.
Listening to podcasts and audiobooks.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Doing a bit of writing.
Mm-hmm.
How about you?
Working, man. Running a couple of businesses, still advising companies, seeing massive opportunities out there as well. A lot of businesses to start, a lot of opportunities. But
You think you're working on actually doing like some businesses, starting some businesses?
Oh yeah, there's so much opportunities for online space, especially in the education. Like that's my forte. Like this shit ton of when people. This is the scarcity versus abundance mindset. And when shit hits the fan, you have the parasympathetic system versus a sympathetic system. So fight versus flight. Most people, they will fly away, right? They'll run away. Very rare group of people will fight, actually accept the challenge, like, okay, this.
What do you think?
Yeah.
Like, I'm trying to be the second one, not the flight, but the fight. But I'm also trying to preserve capital, and I want to be ready to buy dips or buy businesses that get
that's
distressed
exactly
and stuff.
Fighting. That's you're saving capital. You're saving your portfolio, which is the whole theme of this show today. But you're saving that.
How's that one? Is that better?
No, man. The other one with the
other one was better. Okay.
The middle, the split.
Okay. So I'm saving my capital. So I'm kind of like, yeah. I've been hearing that from people that there will be businesses that you can probably acquire for cheaper than you normally would.
It's not that simple as acquiring a business. Then it's about who's operating the business. How are you going to make the business better? It's not simply acquiring a business.
Right.
Yeah. But so let's talk about your strategies. So what have you been doing? Let's educate the people. What have you been doing to help your portfolio?
Sure, man. Well, by the way, I got this weird setup now. I downloaded an app so that it's like my phone. So my phone's up there.
Yeah.
I can't see you, so
you can't see me.
That's better. That's better. I just moved the window around.
Okay, there we go.
All right. So it's good now. And I'm standing up. I'm on my stand-up desk, trying not to get my hips all locked up because you're in quarantine.
Yeah, yeah.
So I might be jittering around a bit. And I'm drinking a vodka soda. Is that okay?
Yeah, man. This episode's brought to you by vodka soda. The more drunk you get,
the smarter you become.
SoCal.
Social distancing. Light. Sorry,
yeah. That while I'm drinking fucking cashew milk.
Cashew milk, nice. Well, this is the zero carb drink.
I'm dairy intolerant unless it's raw dairy straight from the cow or raw cheese. But if it's processed, pasteurized dairy, no bueno.
Yeah, that's interesting. My wife said the same thing. She was in Ireland, and she was having like straight from fresh.
That's how
dairy.
That's how it's done, bro. All the bacteria is there. It's the best, man. Trust me. Yeah, especially from like A2 cows or goats, even.
A2? What is that? Like
there's two genetics, A1, A2, but that's a whole different story.
Okay. All right, we're getting distracted. So we're talking about finances. Yeah. So recently I was kind of starting an investor journal because the last time that the markets were really volatile in the cryptocurrency markets, I was trying to learn about trend following strategies to invest in cryptocurrencies because I am a Bitcoiner, but I'm also an entrepreneur and I'm also a FOMO sapien. So I feel the FOMO all the time, right? So I was trying to learn strategies because if you're just a FOMO guy and you get that urge to buy the dip or invest in the new hot thing, it's really easy to make emotional decisions and then make wrong decisions and make YOLO bets and stuff. So you just, like, I think Bitcoin's going to go down, so I'm going to sell all of it now. I'm going to sell the whole thing, and then I'm going to buy back cheaper. Like, that's a common feeling that you would get. So the last time that I did a move like that was when Mt. Gox blew up, and I lost the majority of my net worth trying to be like, you know, a really smart trader guy or whatever. And obviously Mount Gox went down. So it was just, I learned a big lesson that risk is something you want to pay attention to, and it's not just the risk of Bitcoin going up and down that I needed to pay attention to, but it was counterparty risk, which is the exchange Mount Gox that had my keys ended up being the risk, not really the price. Like the price went down too, but I actually lost pretty much everything not because my bet was wrong. I would have lost some because my bet was wrong, but really I lost because I was putting all of my exposure to that one place. So what I learned from that was a valuable lesson that I need to spread my risk across multiple strategies and multiple areas, and also try to learn better, from portfolio managers and people who are professional investors and stuff, and then try to like mimic that or implement that as much as I can. So that's what I've been doing the last few years, and I feel like I got prepared for this coronavirus crash, and I ended up making some conservative moves. I moved some of my investments around and thought about like what's going to happen to the markets. And I had the urge to do a lot of things like all in, all out, like those types of moves. But I'm fighting those urges, and I'm just like, I've got to be conservative, and I'm going to make small movements and just position myself so that I'll be ready for any scenario that can happen.
What did you do? What are these moves you did?
So, yeah, strategically, like what I did leading up was I was aware that for a little while, for like a couple of years, that the markets, the general macro markets, are probably overvalued. And I was just slowly reducing exposure in general to stocks and stuff. Now, coming from this as a Bitcoiner, as like not a professional investor, as just a guy that was interested in economics from the point of view of like central banks are a bunch of scammers. And that was where I was coming at it from. And, not coming at it from like a finance background or anything. I was very skeptical of stocks and the stock market and central banking and all that. So I was one of those guys that was like doom and gloom. I would Google like how to invest, and then I would see these guys selling newsletters be like, the markets are all going to fall apart, you better buy gold right now. And like, so I fell for that. I paid for a couple subscriptions. This was like 2012 or something.
Yeah.
And I came at the markets and investing from that scarcity mindset, that what'd you call it, the parasympathetic response
versus parasympathetic systems.
So that was my response. The parasympathetic, I think, is the one where it's like you got to fly away, right? So I was looking at this as like there's going to be a big crash and it's never going to recover, and gold is going to be the new crypto, or gold is going to be the new currency or whatever. And I tried trading some stocks, and just, I think a lot of people are like that. A lot of probably your listeners are like that too. They're just not, they're on like r/Wall Street Bets or something, and they're just following stonks, but they're not really.
That play should just be for entertainment. But the problem with most people, they're emotionally driven, and I'm gonna be honest, most people are just dumb. Most people refuse to do the fucking work and spend fucking years understanding the domain and understanding how systems work, and they want easy motherfucking green button for everything in life. And that's the reality of a lot of fucking dumb humans.
Yeah, and I relate with that. I would like that too.
And that's why they're not the best. That's why they don't have the wealth that they want. That's why they're not fucking number one. They're mediocre because they want fucking cheat codes.
But you can change, you can learn, right? You can
Yeah.
So you don't have to start off knowing that knowledge, but you can get into that knowledge.
You think I knew about nothing? I come from a fucking hustler background, bro. I didn't even finish fucking high school or read a book until I was like 22.
Yeah, I like to say I come from a hustler background too, but mine was more like, doing magic shows and clown shows when you were doing real hustler stuff. So, yeah, I guess I learned a lot about, like, I made the typical mistakes of investing at the beginning, and I came at it skeptical of the stock market and everything, and I didn't have any stocks going into or coming out of 2008, and then I watched, like everybody did, as the fundamentals didn't even matter, and even though things were overvalued, we went up and up and up and up and up. So then I kind of I found this guy on crypto Twitter. What's his name? He ended up blocking me and like tweeting, like, you know, he's a weird guy, but Kazanomics, I think was what his name was.
Okay.
But he's since got banned from Twitter, and he's got a private cult that he runs right now. But
okay,
this Kazanomics guy turned me on to Alpha Trends, and Alpha Trends is a real smart guy, Brian Shannon. So then I got Brian Shannon's book, and he's the creator of the Wall Street Cheat Sheet, like the original one, the Fear and Greed Cycle. And and so this Kazanomics guy actually kind of opened my eyes a little bit to the fact that like the stock market has been on a 100-year bull run when you zoom out, and it doesn't, you know, war and economic crashes and all these things, in the end, like the stock market continues to rise up, and betting against the stock market is pretty much betting against the United States. So even though fundamentally it shouldn't, like, companies are overvalued, the S&P is overvalued, like the individual stocks are overvalued, it's just the Ponzi. So, you know, you just got to kind of accept it and either be willing to expose some of yourself to those potential gains or losses like everybody else, or completely disconnect from it and then be like a hustler or like a business guy or whatever, and generate your own value. So I did a mix of both. And what I ended up deciding was that I was going to expose myself to some of the stocks speculation, because for 100 years it's worked out for people. And even though I don't believe in it.
You're doing shorting? Like, what was your strategy?
Well, leading up to the, you know, for the last, say, 4 years, what I started to do was like, bite my fingers and just go into the stock market. Because I, as a Bitcoiner, like, I really don't like the moral sort of like supporting the stock market. I don't like supporting the scam of central banking and fractional reserve banking. But anyways, I kind of like reprogram myself a little bit to just take, say, like 10% of my portfolio and get a financial advisor that will take care of that for me. And he just puts me in index funds, and we'll talk about which index funds to be in. But this guy so I read the book Money Master the Game from Tony Robbins. And then he had another one he came out with, Unshakable. And these are Tony Robbins is the motivational speaker guy, but then he also works with like really high-end people like Jeff Bezos and Bill Clinton and Ray Dalio and all these folks. So Tony Robbins, during his career of advising like Ray Dalio and folks like that, got to learn how to invest and stuff from these legends. So then he distilled all the knowledge into this book. And even though I fundamentally am like counter to those markets, I realized that I should expose myself to them to have a really true diversified portfolio long term, if we're talking retirement. So I suspended my kind of, I guess, contrary beliefs a little bit for about 10% of my portfolio. And I found a financial advisor that sort of like, I went and I interviewed like, and this was at a time when I was looking at my bank account and it was negative $200,000. So I'm looking at my net worth.
You're like perfect time to.
Yeah, I'm looking at my net worth and it's like negative $200,000. And I'm thinking like, I better use The Secret here or something, because I got to track this money in somehow. But there was another book I read that was like, if you put yourself in the mode of, even if you don't have any money, if you put yourself in the mode of learning about money management and planning for what you're going to do with the money when it comes, then when it comes, you'll be more ready to keep it, protect it, grow it, etc. Versus if you're just going to be like, if money comes to you, you'll probably lose.
This is why 75% of people who win the lottery go broke. And this is why if I gave everybody $1 million, I would even say 90% of the people that received $1 million will go broke in 5 years because they're too stupid to keep it.
Yeah, well, when I was, making those Mount Gox bets and stuff, was thinking, oh great, I'm going to double my Bitcoin here, and you know, whatever. You got to either learn before, or you got to learn from losing. And I think those are the, or you just won't learn, right? You'll just lose and keep losing and keep losing. So hopefully people, if I can give any advice to people, would be like, go learn about proper conservative investment strategies like portfolio management. You don't need to be a trader. You just should know, what are you going to do with your money when you have it? And you know, for anybody that listens to your channel, they're probably got some exposure to Bitcoin. So what are you going to do when Bitcoin goes to like $100,000 per Bitcoin? You know, you probably shouldn't keep it all in Bitcoin because it's very volatile, because it's probably going to go to 100 and then maybe 200 and then probably back down to 30. And if you see that thing happen, it's going to suck. So
yeah,
learning proper portfolio management was really great, from books like Trend Following, Commandments, from Michael Covell. He's got a bunch of books on trend following that I learned about how to invest and how to manage a portfolio, how to not make those dumb bets anymore, and try to like suspend my greed feelings, and just slow down, set some rules, set basket allocations, and just allocate to these different baskets, and then say, like, if this goes up, I'm going to rebalance my basket, rather than I'm just going to hodl for like ever and then suffer through the back pain and the stress of like the Bitcoin market. So yeah, what I ended up doing was I for stocks, I got this financial advisor and interviewed like 3 or 4 different ones locally, and found a guy that I really liked. He kind of had he was successful. He had a big book of business. He was willing to work with anybody. So I told him straight up, I was like, dude, I have no money right now, by the way. So I went and I met with him, and he was like, I'll work with anybody. You got $500 or you got $10 million. I'll work with you. And I like that about him, because I went to interview another one of them, and they were like, first thing they said to me was, if you don't have $100,000, we don't want to continue this meeting. So that just really turned me off. And, so it's been, it was a learning experience to see like what kind of people you're going to end up meeting in the financial advisor space. And
a lot of them are redundant and useless.
Yeah. And like most of them are people that work for a bank. So
you always got to ask yourself, skin in the game. Do they have anything to lose? If anything goes south, are they accountable for it? And if they're not, fuck off.
And fees is a big one too. That was what I learned from Tony Robbins' book.
Fuck,
like
yeah.
Most of your gains over the long term, if you're talking about like participating life insurance or like a long-term retirement fund over 30 years or something, a 1 or 2% fee extra over what you should be paying could be millions of dollars because of the compound.
You seen a movie, Wolf of Wall Street, where McConaughey's there? He's like, hamster wheel. Fucking fees, man. The hamster wheel. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. fuck the fees.
Yeah, so like that was one of the big things I learned from Tony Robbins' book, and it was also really relevant for this like times like now. I would suggest everybody go and get that audiobook at least, but get Unshakable or whatever, because there was an exercise in there that made you go through all of your expenses. To sum up his book, it was basically like teaching you how to live like a millionaire, or whatever your financial goal is, without actually being a millionaire, or without actually being a billionaire, or whatever your goals are. You want to be able to drive a nice car. You want to have the experience of renting a private island. You want to have the experience of like taking your whole family on a cruise. Like you want to have the experience of investing in a business. Whatever that experience you want to have, you don't need to be a millionaire or a 10 millionaire or a billionaire to do it. You can actually have those little moments and experience those things on a much smaller scale, but like fully experience what it would be like to have that size of a money. Like you could take, instead of buying a private jet, you could just take one private jet flight, and then you had that experience of flying on a private jet, and maybe you'll realize first class is fine, or even just flying somewhere is fine. So his whole book was all about like learning how to live way above your means, but doing it smartly, so that you're not spending above your means. And it's all about investing, figuring out where you can cut off from your budget, and how to generate income to sort of like meet your goals. So one of the things was he was talking about basket allocations and stuff like that. So I'm kind of building a foundation. Hopefully this is okay.
It's good, man. Keep on going.
I'm kind of ranting. that book helped me out a lot. The Trend Following, Complete Turtle Trader was another really good one from Michael Covell about trend following. It was about a group of people in the 80s that this rich, like, 100 millionaire guy hired, gave him a trend following trading strategy. There was just no experience in trading, and let them go. And like a few of them ended up making like tens of millions of dollars with his rules.
Yeah, I just had Tom Basso on the show. That's all we talked about.
Did you really?
Yeah. It's going to come out live
awesome.
Monday next week.
How'd you get Tom Basso?
Reached out to him, man. I've been I followed this stuff for a bit, and his resource, like, guys, Google. He's going to be on the I had him on the show, but the episode drops either later this week or next week. But his website, man, it's like, Jesus, man, half the stuff is free. He can just literally, like, he's recorded hundreds of hours of like amazing educational material.
Tom Basso's great. He's got the phrase "riding the bucking bronco," and that's what reminded me of Bitcoin. I reached out to Tom Basso like 2 years ago, or actually like 3 years ago now. Time flies in Bitcoin. 3 or 4 years ago, after I heard him on an interview on Michael Covell's podcast, I think it's called Trend Following Radio or something like that. And Tom Basso was on there, and he was also in this book, The New Market Wizards. And he's one of the more successful trend following fund managers. And so I kind of like went back and forth with Tom, tried to convince him to buy some Bitcoin, but he's not like he's a traditional guy. But he was awesome. Like, I'm just nobody, reaching out to him on Facebook Messenger, and he's like giving me tips and talking to me and stuff. He was a great guy.
Yeah, he's awesome, man. Yeah. Awesome guy.
Yeah. So, yeah, learning from folks like that have managed a lot of money and lost money and made bad bets and stuff. Another one was What I Learned Losing $1 Million. That was a really good book. That
yes.
If you're gonna go through that one, the first half of the book is really all you need to read. The second half is kind of like whatever, but the first half, because it's written by two different authors. But that was a great story, great lesson on risk management and like how to avoid big losses and just think about your risk.
All right, so let's pause here. I got 2 follow-up questions. So you're building on this platform. First question is, you went to this guy, your financial advisor. You didn't care if you had $1 or $1 million. You said you're $200,000 in debt. How the fuck did you get out of debt for $200,000? Answer that question, and then let's go to continue to the story, because that'll set the game up properly.
Sure.
What was the actual specific strategies that you did to put yourself in the position that you are today?
Yeah, so that was kind of an interesting multiple things coming together. I've been through a lot of ups and a lot of downs in my entrepreneur career. I had some really big success in some Facebook games that I made back in like 2009. I I grew up in a really poor family. I grew up in like group housing, and we were on welfare, and like my mom and dad got divorced when I was pretty young, and my dad had like basement apartments and stuff that we'd go to. I never thought he was in poverty or whatever, but had a great time with both. My dad, and my mom also was like, my dad was a delivery driver, so he delivered bread and milk and pastries and stuff door to door, so he was self-employed. And my mom was like, she was like trying to do Amway and like Herbalife and all these MLM companies.
Yeah. It's like,
so I just vaguely remember, because I was really overweight as a kid too, and I just vaguely remember my mom trying to feed me these Herbalife shakes and pills and stuff, because I would eat too much Mr. Noodles, I guess, and pizza, like pizzas and stuff, frozen pizzas, because we were eating welfare food pretty much, and it's like just cardboard, right? Just eating raw Mr. Noodles like as chips. So anyways, grew up with that mindset in Cape Breton on the east coast of Canada. And so I never had the mindset of like, I got to acquire things. I want to buy, I want to get things. I always had the mindset growing up of like hustle. I wasn't kidding about being a clown or a magician. Like when I was a kid, my mom like basically made me be an entrepreneur, and I was like doing clown shows and magic shows from when I was like 8 years old to when I was like in high school, and I finally realized I can make the decision to stop doing this embarrassing thing.
But being a magician is a good skill to have, man. It's persuasion.
Yeah, it was fun. It helped me learn public speaking and learned about money. Like I would earn $50 a weekend kind of a thing. And I never felt poor, but I never was developed with proper money knowledge. and financial knowledge. So nobody in my family really ever strived to own a house. It wasn't until I moved to Ontario that I realized like most people should own a house or do own a house. In the East Coast of Canada, it was like really high unemployment and everybody's renting or whatever.
I would put a caveat on that. Most parents own a house in Toronto. The millennials don't own a fucking house.
Yeah.
Millennials are broke. Broke as a joke with zero assets.
Yeah, well, it was like that was back home. That's what it was like growing up for me. I don't know if it was just because of where I grew up and the circle that I was around and like my family influence and stuff, but
no one's taught financial literacy. Bro, I was hustling I got kicked out of high school end of grade 9, so I was like 15, 16, something like that. And I made a shit ton of cash money for a very long time, a lot of money. I lost it all. Not lost it physically, but like I just spent it all.
Yeah, I think you told me before about like crazy things you used to spend money all the time. You just carry money around in your pocket and at the clubs and stuff.
Clubs, $5K, no problem. $10K, no problem. One bill we had in the club was like fucking like 60, $80K at the government a long time ago. We just gone. I had zero financial. What the fuck? I just go do my next thing and get some more cash. I had zero. No one ever sat me down or never read a book or never even like bothered to think, what should I do with this? No, I'm just gonna go fucking party.
There's the Floyd Mayweather economics there.
Yeah, pretty much. Exactly. Yeah.
So like I guess it was kind of similar, but like I don't know how much of this I want to get into on camera, but I've okay.
Like, let's fast forward.
People in my circle were like that, and I would see some of that like back home because there was a lot of hustlers back home, like ripping off ATM machines and like selling drugs and stuff like that. And so I was kind of on the one hand exposed to that because of some people in my family, but on the other hand, I was like a Mormon magician. So I wasn't able to drink coffee or root beer or anything like that, but I was like, you know,
that's like a whole business right there, like a Mormon magician fucking service.
Exactly, man. It's $50 a weekend.
Yeah.
All right. So then it wasn't until I wanted to make a movie that I realized I got to maybe try to make some real money because movies are expensive. So I'd written this film, this 80s horror movie send-up film. Because after magic and clown show stuff, I got into like acting and theater and film and stand-up comedy and stuff in Toronto. So we came to Toronto, and that was when I was exposed to the middle-class life. My wife's, well, now my wife, but at the time my girlfriend, her family was like a Catholic Portuguese kind of middle-class. Mom's a teacher, dad's a factory worker kind of life. And, you know, they had a nice house, and I was like, whoa, crap, like people own houses. Oh, that's interesting. Maybe I got to get me some of this. So I kind of saw that in order to make this movie, I was going to have to make some money. So I literally Googled how to make money online. That was my first exposure to like becoming an entrepreneur, just going on Google in 2005 and saying like, how do I make money online? Got scammed a whole lot. Did a bunch of MLM stuff that I didn't realize was like MLM stuff. I was like, oh, you know, you can get your friends to do surveys and you make $50. So, you know, what, like typical, just like moron getting on the internet, trying to figure out how to make money. I guess I just stuck with it, and then eventually realized I should start a bit like I got to start a real business. So I started doing like marketing, online marketing. And then I started doing Facebook games. And it was about the time in 2008 when I first had some success. So I went from being like totally broke, no financial background, to making like 6 figures in a month with this game. And that was the first time that I was like, my mind was blown, and I was like, wow, this online stuff can actually work. So we, you know, I made this 6-figure month, and it was like my life had totally changed. And then so I went and ended up making the movie, which was a really fun experience. But then I was like getting into actually running a business. And businesses have costs. And so I was not of the mindset of an investor yet. I was more of the mindset of a hustler still and an entrepreneur. And as I started to kind of have savings build up from profits from this company I started, it was just like a bootstrap company. It was just me and 2 other guys in our basements, right? And the profit margins were insane. It was like 90% profits. So I ended up building, you know, filming this movie, which was like my first $100,000 I wasted on making a movie. So I was like, man, but it was super fun. I was like, well, I'm either going to give this money to the government as taxes, or I'm going to do something like entrepreneurial
Yeah,
with it, right?
totally.
So I was like, I'm going to make my movie. Like, that's a business. I'm going to try to actually make it in this business. It was so fun, but it was also like a big waste of money. But the games just kept taking off, and so we ended up trying to scale that up. I built a house, had a baby, got married, got myself a Ford Edge, you know, like paid it off. So I just used my savings, because I was of the mindset at this point that like money is a scam, and like central bankers are scammers, and they're printing so much money that I shouldn't have savings, because they're just going to end up inflating it so much that the money in my bank is going to be worth less and less. So I want to put it into assets, and I want to put it into myself, like invest in myself, because I just was like watching Ron Paul's presidential election, learning about libertarianism, learning about Austrian economics, like by osmosis while running my business. I realized this money is going to be devalued, so I got to like do stuff with it rather than just stacking up numbers in a bank account. So I pretty much had no savings, but you know, business went down, the Facebook game changed, a lot of big companies got involved, and like our profit margins went way down. Oh, my video stopped.
Oh,
can you still hear me?
Loud and clear, bro.
But you can't see me?
Nope.
Okay, hold on. Oh, I'm getting a phone call.
Ah, that's why you don't use your phone as a camera.
My mom's calling me.
All right, mama.
You're talking about me on YouTube. You better stop it. So that gets me to the point where you asked, like, how are you in so much debt? Well,
yeah,
it was like I ended up basically trying to scale up my company to compete with these big companies, right? And I'm just a hustler entrepreneur. I'm not really a trained, like I don't have an MBA or anything like that. So I made another rookie mistake, and I tried to scale my company up like way too fast and too big. I went and I ended up like nearly at the point where I had to sell my house and move in with the in-laws again. And that was like a rough time for me. It was actually the second time that happened. So I was at this low where I had gone through trying to scale up my business, had like 18 employees, ended up burning through most of the cash. We built like 200 Facebook or iPhone apps in like a matter of a year.
Wow.
But the business just didn't work out. And so it was like I just did things in the wrong order and ended up kind of being like super negative on like net worth side, because we burnt most of the cash. So I'm now taking a break from it. I'm scaling it down. I'm having to lay people off. It's like, that sucks. I don't like having these conversations. I'm realizing I'm not really a really good manager of people at that scale. And so that's when I started to learn more about, and you know, I'm not, at this time, I also got into Bitcoin at 2011. So I started mining Bitcoin in 2011 when I saw about it, because I was learning about, like I said, Austrian economics, central bank scams, like quantitative easing. All this is going to end up making money so inflated, like the purchasing power of money is going to drop so much. I want to invest in other things like gold and silver and houses and stuff like that. But I didn't have much money. I was just thinking, like, I got to do this with any profits that are coming to me. I got to, like, instead of putting it in dollars, I'm going to put it in this stuff. So it was like one day I was trying to Google like how to import silver, like little silver ingots without paying tax, because you're not supposed to pay tax on ingots that come across. There's a tax code you can write on the envelope, and then they don't charge you the taxes. And this guy that was talking about this also mentioned about this digital gold thing. So the digital gold was Bitcoin. When I saw that, being in the Facebook game business and seeing people spend money on virtual currency every month, I realized there's two things that came to play here. People value digital currency, and the money is a scam. So there needs to be an alternative. And I was into, like, you know, Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad and stuff. He talked about gold and whatever. So when I saw that, I really started mining it and buying it, and kind of felt like this was going to be really big. Crazy fluctuations in the market. When I got in, it was $10. It went all the way to $30 by that summer, and then crashed down to $2. And so it was just so volatile. And we've seen that just again recently. It went from $1,000 or $500 basically 2016, all the way up to 20,000 nearly at the end of 2017, and then back down to 3,000, right? So Bitcoin has these boom bust cycles. So most of my Bitcoin that I had, I ended up losing it, like I said earlier, in Mt. Gox, because I wasn't like aware of the risks of not holding your own private keys. It was just, I was holding it on an exchange. So anyways, how did I get to a negative net worth? Was like, it wasn't really so much as bad as it looked on paper, but that's what I would see. I would like get this statement from the bank and I'd look at it and I'd be like, shit, this is like negative 200,000 net worth. And it made me feel like I was worth negative.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I was looking at this like negative 200,000, like, gee, thanks, TD.
Yeah.
And it just made me feel like crap on top of my business failing and all that stuff. So that's when I really started to try to learn about long-term investing, conservative investment, so I wouldn't make these YOLO bets anymore. Like, I'm going to make a movie with all my money and maybe that'll make me rich, or I'm going to do this bet on Bitcoin and that's going to make me retire, or like I'm going to spend all my company's money on this one strategy and we'll blitz the app store and in a year we'll be making $10 million. So I just kind of like tried to reframe my mind and get out of that. Like, it was more like I was being driven by kind of like short-term fads rather than conservative long-term strategies. So I would always feel FOMO around like a short-term sort of event. And I would always want to like go make a business for that, or like for coronavirus or something. I could imagine myself 10 years ago being like, oh, I'm going to go buy all the N95 masks that I got in my local hardware store and start selling them online. Like that was the mindset of like reactionary mindset I was in back then. And I don't know, do you think like that it ended up kind of working, but kind of not, like in the long term, I think that built bad habits for me. Like I would make money doing that, but then I would build bad habits because I wouldn't know how to handle the money that came in, and I would end up losing it. So I don't know.
So what was the question?
What do you think? Like, I often wonder if like, because now I avoid that, like the plague. If there's some short-term fad sort of thing that I've got an idea,
short-term.
I always avoid it now.
It has to be asset building. I'm putting my time in. If it's not a long-term asset building or company asset building, or I'm gaining some massive amounts of skills that I can utilize in other type of cross domains or cross pollinations. Worth this quick buck doesn't take you. Like for me, it's like no matter what, I'm putting energy. If I'm gonna whether it's something quick or long, I might as well put something into long, the sustainable, that I can appreciate this asset and eventually exit it. Like if you have a company that it requires you 24/7, it's not a company. You're just a highly paid employee at all. Like if your company can't run without you, it's not a fucking company.
Yeah, it's versus like quick profitable trends that you can take advantage of and then they're gone in a year or something like that. I think that like it depends. If you're just young and you're a hustler and you're starting out, like you can probably make some money doing that. But
sure, if you have no overhead.
But then like you and me both had the same experience. We would make money, but then we'd blow it because we didn't have the knowledge of how to like properly handle the money or invest it or not make these stupid bets on stuff that would end up failing or sometimes working, but then eventually you've got bad habits from that and you'll do it again at a bigger number and probably lose it at one point. So in the end, it's like if you don't invest in your knowledge of investing and like asset building, like you said, even if you make $10 million off of a business, like you can lose it by saying, oh, there's this undervalued condo I'm going to buy for $7 million or something like that. And then all of a sudden the market crashes, you're over leveraged and you lose it. Like that, anything can happen at any size.
We're looking now in the real estate. People are so over leveraged. Everyone's selling. They need liquidity.
Yeah, there was a story actually in that book Money Master the Game where Tony Robbins talked about someone that he knew that was like he was worth like $100 million and he had all these hotels in Las Vegas, and he ended up losing everything in the crash of 2008 because he was way over leveraged. And you think about someone like that, like they're so successful and they've achieved so much in their life, they've got so many things, but they make the dumb mistakes that somebody that's like 20 years old that's just, taking a credit card out and putting it all on Bitcoin. Yeah. It's like the same type of logic. If you don't fight those FOMO feelings, it's going to build bad habits. And like, yeah, sometimes FOMO is going to make you money, but
FOMO. It's the weirdest thing.
No, man, I suffer from it every single day. I'm still suffering from it.
As soon as I see people all congregate to one thing, I got red alarms going in my head. I'm like, oh, something's fucked. I'm out of here.
Yeah.
It's weird. But then also like I miss out on like trends. I'm like, well, fuck, I just missed out on that trend because I didn't trust.
That's FOMO.
No, but not missed out. Like it's hindsight, but like I never have the urge. Like,
yeah.
Like, I understand the psychology. Bitcoin goes up or stock goes up. People buy it then. I'm like, are you stupid?
No, but it's the same on both. And it's on the up and the down. If you missed out on something and you feel like shit, I guess I should have went in on that, or you feel those feelings. Like I think everybody feels it just at different areas. So like if a trend takes off and you missed it,
the best
you'll feel that FOMO too.
George Gammon, I just had him on the show, and it's not about how much the asset costs. The question you should be asking yourself: is it cheap or is it expensive? That's it.
Is it cheap or is it expensive?
That's it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Don't look at the asset price.
Like Boeing right now is expensive, even though it's down 50%.
Correct. So same thing. We can look at maybe like any asset. Let's say like, a house for $1 million somewhere, but maybe it's in some prime New York location. We know New York, no matter what, might be expensive. Like the asset's $1 million to you might be expensive. But if I put the question, is it cheap or expensive? And I know my stuff, I might say it's cheap. I'll pay $1 million.
Well, the other thing was that Brian Shannon guy from Alpha Trends, he has a saying that is, I think of this a little bit every once in a while when I miss something, when I miss a coin or like an investment or whatever, and I'm like, oh shit, I wish I got in that. Yeah. He says, I'd rather be the guy on the outside wishing I got in than the guy in wishing that he was getting out, wishing that he got out. So like, if you're like an Enron investor or something like that, right? And you're just thinking this thing can't go any lower. I'm gonna dollar cost average and buy more because this is gonna.
Or the plebs who bought Tesla at $900 a share.
Yeah, and then at 700, they're like, oh, it can't go lower than this, so they double up, and then I'm dollar cost averaging. So people, this is one of the
thing. Those people shouldn't be participating. Like if you're so emotionally driven, you should not do any investing at all. End of story. Period.
Yeah, you shouldn't, but it's hard to control.
How many people are successful? 1%. And this is why they control everything. Because they control their emotions. They follow heuristics. Like that's all Tom and I talked about on the show. The systems and heuristics.
Well, that's the thing. That's why I started doing, like at the beginning, I said I started doing an investor journal because I'm starting to feel those feelings again. And last time,
so let's go through heuristics. So you allocated stuff in some indexes.
So yeah, so to bring it all back, it was in the end I earned enough from Bitcoin to be able, because I had really hard times and I was at the point where my business failed. A business partner screwed me and I kind of lost 100% of my income. I had no income on any of my businesses anymore, pretty much. I mean, I had some income that was paying like half my rent and half my food costs, but like now I'm living in this house. I got this mortgage, I got a car, I got a wife and a daughter, and like I got expenses. I got a burn rate that's like too high for what I'm way too high for what I'm bringing in. And I just live a normal life. I'm not like at the club spending $5,000 on booze and stuff like that. But I'm like hurting for sure. And it was like worst case. Also had like my wife had a rare disease that got diagnosed. She was in the hospital, like a life-threatening rare disease. And it was like everything hitting me at once. And I tried to start learning about Stoicism and the Stoic philosophy and try to like practice that, try to do gratitude journaling and things like that, set goals, like reading books on investing, reading just a lot of learning and trying to help get myself out of this, listening to podcasts and stuff like that. And also the show Trailer Park Boys helped me quite a bit get to sleep and turn my mind off. It was just like mindless comedy.
Canadian national treasure.
So
we smoked a blunt with Julian, who was in Toronto years ago.
Oh, did you?
Randomly on the streets. Yeah, it was like eons ago.
Nice. Killed two birds in the bush with one. What is it? What is his phrase?
I don't know.
He makes all these
shows like Sam Squanch.
Yeah.
I love that show.
So, anyways, yeah, I was pretty much like bottom of what I've experienced. Some people have been in worse bottoms than me for sure, but it's all relative, right? And the pain I felt was probably like the low I felt was the lowest I've ever been. And I wasn't at the point where I was like suicidal or anything like that, but it was like low for me. So I got out of it with friends and shows and like learning and like deep research into my wife's condition to try to figure that out and help her and stuff like that. Started treating that like a business almost, and just researching how can we solve this. And so anyways, I'm looking at this statement at the same time as this, being like, oh, I'm negative. My net worth is negative. Like it's just not helping. It's not helping me. So anyway, I took the steps anyways, and I went and started interviewing financial advisors. I started setting goals. Like, what am I going to do when I get out of this? I'm going to do whatever it takes to get out of this. I'm going to start another business. I'm going to get a job. I'm going to move back in with the in-laws, and then I'm going to like do whatever kind of job I can get. I just had the mentality that I was going to do whatever it took. And at the same time, I was learning about trend following and, obviously following the cryptocurrency markets and being an investor in Bitcoin. That was my thing that I would never sell. I was like, I'm never going to sell this Bitcoin. It doesn't exist, because I had lost on the bet, but I'm so sold on Bitcoin at this point, and even the whole time, I'm just so sold that Bitcoin is going to end up being a competitor to gold as a global reserve currency in 10 years or whatever. At the point, I was like, whatever, how many ever years it takes, Bitcoin has a shot. And I'd sell my house before I sell my Bitcoin, was the way I was thinking about it.
Yeah.
And thankfully I didn't, and I kept the remaining Bitcoin that I did have, even though I lost the majority of it in GOX on stupid bets and like taking too much risk, counterparty risk, etc. So I started doing, following guys like Tom Basso around that time. And I can't wait to hear your interview with him. I love any interview with him. So that's going to be a good one. And following him, following other trend followers, learning from Tony Robbins, learning from people who've made money and who've lost money, and try to like change my habits of making YOLO bets and trying to do trendy, like, short-term gains kind of a thing. And transition myself more into an investor, and like think about Bitcoin as how do I get more of this, and how do I build myself back up? And so I got basically like a part-time contracting gig, and I still have my games in the background. They're just not making nearly as much as before. It's like just a small amount of money, but it's enough to just keep me like sane. So I'm, trying to do stuff with my games and stuff, but anyway, it ended up being that I made the right relationships. I made the right moves with Bitcoin, and I started journaling and setting goals. And then I started investing, with my Bitcoin. And it ended up being that because of all these decisions I made, when Bitcoin went to like $20,000 within the next year or so, I had knowledge that I didn't have a year earlier, that I probably might have sold my Bitcoin. When I saw Bitcoin go from like, because at the time when I was thinking I'm never going to sell this, it was like $200. And I wasn't even thinking about it as real. It was just pixels at the time. I'm like, this has potential to be, huge. But anyway, so I learned how to properly do portfolio allocation, basically, and how to rebalance. So a lot of friends that I have in the Bitcoin space since the early days, they ended up not having any success with Bitcoin. Like they ended up selling their Bitcoin too early, or they lost it all, or they bought an altcoin or something. They went all in on an altcoin that got wrecked or whatever. And it's sad because a lot of people think, oh, if you're in Bitcoin early, then you must be a millionaire.
No,
at least
most people early aren't.
And they're not. And I've learned it was because the FOMO feeling of being in Bitcoin through these volatile movements and not being aware of trend following as a concept cause you to sell at the top, or sorry, cause you to sell at the next previous top. So when in 2016, Bitcoin's at $200, right? Or 200 to 500. Say $500, I think it was in 2016. It was right after the ETF was rejected the first time, and then it went up anyways, like a month later. It was like, that's when we knew this was a new trend. And trend following would say to let your winners ride and cut your losses quickly, basically. Like if something's in a downtrend, don't become an investor and like, oh, I'm going to dollar cost average all the way to zero. If something's in an uptrend, you should hold on to that thing because it's the trends that end up making most of the money if you're trading, holding on to winners. And that was a lesson that I learned from both Tony Robbins' book and also Garrett Gunderson's book, Killing Sacred Cows, and these trend following books. So most people that were in the cryptocurrency space and Bitcoiners, early Bitcoiners, they had sat through the Mt. Gox explosion. They had, in 2013, 14, Bitcoin went from like $50 all the way up to like $1,000 in 2014, right? Or 1,100 or whatever it was. And then it crashed, Mt. Gox exploded, and everybody lost so much money during that time. And it's like 2 years of just brutal, like this is the worst news ever. Like the Ross Ulbricht got arrested and the Silk Road drama and like the government's against it. And like, it's only used for drugs and like all this narrative that was politically being attacked. So it was just a lot of pain, man. And then we come out of that in 2016 and it's like light at the end of the tunnel. Yeah. And most people thought that the end of the tunnel was $1,000, the old all-time high. So when we touched that old all-time high, people were like, I'm out. Like, finally I can sell back. I'm back in profit. I'm not in the hole anymore. And so many people sold their Bitcoin at $1,000. They missed the next 20x. Yeah. And that's the power of trend following. It's like, if you're not going to catch the bottoms and you're not going to catch the tops, but you're going to get all that juice in the middle. And like, if you had to just held,
as long as you stay in your channel, man.
Yeah. Like, it's going to be volatile, but like, you can see when a trend happens. And like, the trend shifted on Bitcoin at about like 15,000 or so on the way down. So you wouldn't have.
This is George Soros' whole investment philosophy too. The psychology of markets and trends.
Oh, the reflexology, I think is what he calls it.
Reflexology, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, that was another book I learned some good stuff from, Alchemy of Finance.
Yeah, Alchemy of Finance, yeah.
It's a short one. It's a good read. Everybody should read it, especially now in these times. Like, it's a short book, and it's, he was talking about maybe the 70s or the 80s or something. And it makes a lot of sense now. And I'm going through it again right now, and his whole chapter on currency markets, it applies perfectly to this coronavirus crisis. All of his logic like applies so perfectly.
Are you doing anything specific currently in this situation?
Yeah, so I guess I'm taking forever to get to it, but because you had to go and ask me, how did I get from negative 200 to where I need a financial advisor? So anyway,
you can transcribe this and make it into a book.
Oh yeah,
there you go.
Good idea. So I think, it was the knowledge that I learned from all of these books that had me ready for when the big trend came. I was ready to ride that bucking bronco, like Tom Basso said, and it is a bucking bronco. My God, like Bitcoin is the alpha bronco.
Yeah.
So most people I know had already, like, they sold. They were like, maybe when it hit like 1,500, they're like, oh my God, like 1,500. And I'm just like blown away by Bitcoin rising to like 10,000, then 12,000, and 14, 15. And then it was like literally like, I just couldn't comprehend the price. It went from just being pixels on a screen to like enough money that it changed my life.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Like, it's insane.
So I was able to then sell Bitcoin using trend following strategies, because there's a mantra in Bitcoin that's like hodl and never sell. And I got to admit, I was of that mindset for a long time. I'm like against quantitative easing and like the elite 0.1% central bankers owning the money and enslaving the population and charging interest on these credit cards and stuff when they get the money for free and take zero risk on it. Like they just make the money from nothing and charge you 20% on it. It's like debt slavery. And I'm totally against it. So I was like of the mindset of like, I'm giving away, I'm exiting money, I'm exiting fiat and I'm into Bitcoin. And that was my mindset for a long time. And I ended up taking more losses than I should have because I was in that mindset. But I was overriding my FOMO or whatever with these rules that I learned from these books that you should take profits. It's okay to sell any asset and you should rebalance, and you shouldn't have all your eggs in one basket. You shouldn't have all your exposure to one strategy, one asset, one bank. So like, it's the same as in a business. If you shouldn't have your entire income be built off of one platform, because that Apple reviewer can just deny your app and say, oh, sorry, we don't like this app anymore. And then all your income's gone.
That's right.
So it's the diversification strategy of risk in general was just a super important lesson for me to learn, and ended up paying off big time. So I was able to cash out Bitcoin, overriding my own like activist brain with these lessons I learned, and I cashed out enough to, I'll tell you, I did 4 things. The idea was 4 things. I'm going to pay my taxes because I'm at this point now where I don't need any risk of that either. I don't need any risk of like government being upset at me for, trying to hide money or whatever. So I'm like, I'm just paying it all. I'm just going to pay all the taxes. And yeah, sure, there's a lot of Bitcoiners that are like anti-tax, and I am too philosophically, but when it comes to personal risk, I'm not. The personal risk of not paying taxes is too high for me. So I'm going to cash out enough to pay all my taxes and invest in some startups and some companies and support some projects in the crypto space and friends companies and things like that. Just be able to do some angel investing and to be able to have be able to pay my mortgage off, and then do a little bit of side like investing in stocks and whatever, like through these other strategies I learned. So that was kind of the main thing, was to split my profits from holding Bitcoin into these different baskets of paying the tax, but that just goes away, right? But also my story is kind of different. I feel like I know people that have my wife's condition, and the treatment in the US is like $200,000 a year for this treatment. So I kind of feel like I should pay taxes. I'm one of the people that take advantage of the healthcare system. So I'm totally okay with paying taxes because my wife was dealt this crappy card and the Canadian healthcare system has saved her. And whether or not like a private hospital or whatever, that's a totally different discussion. I think that could also have saved her, but I'm in Canada and this is what Americans are paying. And it's like, we're so lucky here. So thankfully, and there were some drugs that she needed that weren't covered by the Canadian healthcare system. And thankfully with Bitcoin, I was able to cash out to save her life basically. So Bitcoin has done a lot for me. So then I was just reallocating. I had too much exposure to Bitcoin and I was just reallocating into different baskets. So that's what led me to now, I guess, which is continually learning about this stuff. And what I ended up doing was, I'm not an active guy. I'm a hodler, like, of what I'm buying. So I'm investing, I'm not trading. And I realized that I'm not a trader, right? Like I'm not in and out and like trying to make money from like trading Bitcoin. I invested in it early. I held it for like, I didn't sell any from 2011 to 2017. So, I mean, I was in it for a long haul. I held it through 3 bubbles basically. But then as my mindset sort of shifted, I realized I'm a value maximalist, not a Bitcoin maximalist. I was identifying myself as a Bitcoin maximalist on Twitter and whatever. And that's just someone who believes Bitcoin is the best cryptocurrency, but also the best currency, better than fiat, better than gold, whatever. But then as I'm grappling with this, I'm like, I feel like a fraud, like I'm cashing out Bitcoin when I'm calling myself a Bitcoin maximalist. I feel like, if I am really activist about this, I shouldn't be cashing any out. And then I just kind of realized, like, over time, I realized I'm just taking these massive losses by not selling because it is a trend.
Yep.
It's a trend. It's going down. It's obviously a trend. So I override it again. And just recently, the last time I bought Bitcoin was 2018. So with some of the money that I sold in 2006, end of 2017, when the price dropped at, I forget when in 2018, but it went all the way down to like the 3,000s, from 20K high down to the 3,000s.
Yeah.
And it was in the 3,000s that I was like, I have to buy a little bit here. Like, this is, even though I'm overexposed as it is, like, this is such a good price for Bitcoin. Like you said, is it, what was the quote you said?
Is it cheap or is it expensive?
Is it cheap or is it expensive? I mean, that was cheap. By all fundamental values, that was cheap. So I bought a little bit more. And then I said in a blog post that I wrote that, like, advice for hodlers that are like suffering through this hurtful crash, and like, it is hurtful, it's painful to hold Bitcoin through these crashes, but it's worth it in the end, I feel. So anyways, I said I was going to buy some in the 3,000s, and I was going to hold it for at least 2 years, because I feel like, even still now, I feel like Bitcoin is going to be $100,000 in the next 3-4 years. I feel like it's going to be $1 million at least in the next 10 years if it fulfills its promise as a competitor to gold and a global reserve currency, sort of like in that conversation. So I'm still thinking it's going to go up way higher than this. But right now, short term, it's not a hedge against a pandemic. Nothing is a hedge against like a panic event that sends everybody for the exits of all assets. So I've been following the coronavirus, because of my wife's autoimmune condition, really closely. And that just kind of, it was like a warning bells, sending like waves of pain down through my spine for like 3-4 weeks. I was just like, I'm trying to override my feelings to sell everything and move to cash, because I know that's a YOLO bet, and I'm like trying not to do those. But man, it was just like really, really intense pain, no matter what I would do and how I would rationalize it and how I would journal about it and write my stuff down. Like, I want to do this, but I know I shouldn't. The rules say not to, whatever. But then I was like realizing that, well, the rules actually do allow for rebalancing during pandemics. So I ended up, what I did actively was rebalanced to mostly cash. So real estate and cash are the things that hold up, and especially US dollars are the things that hold up in events like this, where people fly to exit anything that's a risky asset.
Yep.
And so I sold Bitcoin. I didn't, I've got an amount of Bitcoin that's going to be my long-term hodl that I probably will never sell. Like the activist libertarian in me is just like, you're never going to sell that, Brad. So I've got that still, and that's like cold storage, multi-sig, stored, in different areas. It's not like at my house or anything like that. This is like Bitcoins that I can't access it if I want to have those YOLO feelings, Like, I've made it so that I can't even access it myself. I need to be able to like do this process to like get multiple signatures on these coins to move them. So, and you can do that with any amount of Bitcoin. You can do that with half a Bitcoin. You can do it with 1 Bitcoin. So whether you're into Bitcoin and you want to hold your Bitcoin for a long time for your retirement, and it's just 1 Bitcoin, like that's a great amount of Bitcoin in 10 years, I feel.
Yep.
So you can set up multi-sig with that 1 Bitcoin. And it's not like you need to have like 20 Bitcoins or something before you can set up multi-sig. You can set it up with anything. So I took, I guess, like the Bitcoins that I had bought in 2018 that I said I was going to hold for at least 2 years, and some of my like cold storage coins, and I ended up selling about like 30% or so of my Bitcoin into US dollars. And so that was kind of like my movements. It was like sitting in real estate, a bit of lending, like real estate lending, second lending with my cash in the bank, and moved the Canadian dollars more into US dollars, and just kind of went heavy on US dollars.
It's smart, man. Short-term, medium-term US dollar is the best. Check out Brent Johnson's theory of the milkshake theory.
Oh, what's this?
Basically, how it goes is the whole world is hedged on the US dollar.
Brent or Brett?
Brent. Brent Johnson.
Milkshake theory.
Yeah. And to summarize, so the whole world is hedged on the US dollar. All debt is denominated in the US dollar. When you have something like MMT right now, which is not yet MMT, MMT happens when there's no loan necessary to get money from the Fed. So how money's printed right now, there needs to be a collateral for that money to be printed. Real MMT is pretty much the Treasury is the Fed, or the Fed takes over, the Treasury takes over the Fed, and they can print money and just send in money. There's no loans necessary. There's no collateral. Just literally press a button. So that's real MMT, and debt doesn't matter because we're the Treasury. And so we're in like late stage quantitative easing right now. Maybe we'll hit MMT, and people are looking for liquidity. The number one liquidity in the premium dollar is US dollar. Everything's hedged in the US dollar. That puts a premium on the US dollar. We saw it right away. Australian dollar dropped 30%. The Canadian dollar dropped. The British pound dropped. All dollars, the Russian ruble, it dropped. The renminbi, well, that's monopoly money. No one wants that fucking shit. That's worthless. And so basically what happens is there's a massive premium on the US dollar, which pretty much acts like a milkshake to suck up liquidity around the world because it has a massive premium. So if I can go to Canada, for every dollar, I get $1.30, I'm sucking up all your money. But that means US dollar doesn't leave United States. Right, so it stops. The trade becomes interesting because there's a problem with the currency. And they had like packs in the back. They had packs in the past to control currency pricing. And so medium short term, US dollar is king. But long term,
yeah,
that's when you get inflation. So after this rides out, asset prices appreciate when, I don't know, 2 years, 3 years. The first thing
it might even be quicker than that.
It might be quicker. There might be a quick cycle, but you'll see consumer goods get very expensive right away because of importing, exporting, premium charges. Then you'll see rent go up, and then you'll see a massive inflation within the States where people can't just afford to live. Then it's going to be an interesting time where capital flight happens. So you have two scenarios. You have the beginning scenario of capital milkshake. Then it becomes inflated, right? Then it's capital flight.
Yeah, that's the thing, man. Like I've been learning a lot about portfolio construction, I guess, and like trying to avoid risk when there's pandemic events like economic black swans over the last year or so, because it's been overvalued for quite a while, and people like Ray Dalio and stuff have been more increasingly calling for a recession at least. And like, you know, any contrarian has been calling for like the stocks to correct.
Yeah.
But anyways, now we're in this position, and I feel like because of the things I learned from those books I mentioned and stuff, I was able to shelter myself from significant portfolio losses, even in Bitcoin, because Bitcoin went down like 50%.
Yeah, and hit like BitMEX hit like 38, 39.
Yeah, that would have been like 60 some percent, 65% or something like that, because
the order engines weren't working, so no one picked it up.
Yeah, that's futures, right? So the spot price never dipped that low. That was more like
price wasn't yet.
Automatic order book like exhaustion sort of like event where they had to close everything down.
Shut the breakers.
Yeah, circuit breakers trip.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I was thinking, because I was following the coronavirus thing, and I was listening to podcasts like the Real Vision and Macro Voices.
Yeah, Real Vision's great, man. I love that.
Yeah, Real Vision's great. Yeah. Macro Voices, Eric Townsend was calling it as well, and he was like kind of like trying to make all of his institutional guests aware, and they were all writing it off, saying, nah, it's not really that big a deal. It's just a China thing.
Yeah.
But like, anyway, I saw it was gonna come and ruin Bitcoin. And I was getting a lot of shit on Twitter from Bitcoiners that were just like, you got weak hands, and like, you know, you're a bad trader and all this. I kind of realized that most of Bitcoin Twitter are just like I was 3-4 years ago. They're just like kind of in that mindset of Bitcoin it's like the activists, philosophical,
anybody who's ideologically driven and doesn't have an open mind, that can't hold two different narratives in their mind, to have an educated conversation with two different narratives, those are dangerous people.
Well, the other thing is that I don't think that people on Twitter are really how they are in real life. I think if I was having an actual conversation with them,
people, social media brings out the worst in people. Well, I want to say it amplifies people. People, because they have no repercussions. It's like you can just bitch and moan online.
The problem with
let's meet me in person. I'll fucking slap you in the face, silly.
I'll show you a magic trick.
You know, that's
right.
Be your friend. Poof! I disappear.
But I think that those people, those like, you know, anonymous people on Twitter that are got like Bitcoin in their profile and toxic symbols in their handle.
That's
and
a religion, like, bro. When I entered crypto 7 years ago, the first thing I said, because I'm a Joseph Campbell buff or Arthur Schopenhauer, I study mythology. I'm like, this is a motherfucking religion.
Yeah, and I've been slowly realizing that most of those people are just beginning their journey of being a hodler, and they're just not yet fully accumulated, so they haven't quite reached their target amount of Bitcoin. Because the best thing is to set a goal. Even anybody watching this now that doesn't have any Bitcoin, it's like the ultimate volatile but potential upside asset. You should have some Bitcoin. Like, having no Bitcoin is just really stupid. It's almost dumber to have no Bitcoin than it is to have everything in Bitcoin and not sell any. Do you know what I mean? Like, you're doing yourself a disservice by not having any allocation to Bitcoin. So set yourself a target, like 1 to 5% is kind of like, you know, kind of a reasonable.
Manage to get one whole Bitcoin. There you go.
Or even if you don't have any money, if you got like negative dollars like I did in your bank account, and you were like negative net worth, I mean, you just do some magic shows, earn $50 a weekend, and throw that into Bitcoin. You know what I mean? Like, just whatever you can do to get a little bit of Bitcoin, and try to set yourself a target, and then once a percentage target, not like, you know, because one Bitcoin for a lot of people might be just like unfathomable for them to ever get one whole Bitcoin. That's worth what now, like $6,000? So like,
yeah, something like that.
That's hard for a lot of people, especially younger people in here that may not have yet like a good job, or maybe their student loans are just crazy. And
listen, the problem with most people, they get stuck on this hedonic treadmill, and they're stuck on this mediocre mindset, and they don't want to they don't want to do the work, man. I'm telling you, people want the easy button, the big green easy button. And when you tell them, like, yo, ups and downs, like you're going to go through pains, you're going to suffer, you have to learn it, you have to appreciate the journey, there's no shortcut. But people don't want to hear that, man. Fundamentally, a lot of people don't want to put in the fucking hard, painful work.
And that's why I think also that Bitcoin attracts a lot of people.
It's crazy. People are like right now, oh yeah, my God. I'm looking around like, holy motherfucking shit. There's so much fucking opportunity right now. Like businesses, like so many businesses you can start, or like help people. Like there's crazy. And everyone's like, oh no.
Yeah, if you got an entrepreneur mindset, this is the time when, you know, like there's be greedy when others are fearful, right? That applies to. I
don't have any sympathy or empathy for people that complain but don't take any fucking ownership or onus or responsibility.
I understand the mindset, because some people just aren't built for that, and like they just don't think.
And fuck off.
Yeah, you don't have, complaining is not good, but one thing that,
like, I can't stand people who complain. I'm like, great, you have a fucking problem, fucking fix it. Like, fuck off. Like, I don't get it. Like, who are you complaining to? Me? Go complain to the wall.
I mean, I caught myself. I used to be more like that, and that was one of the other things when I would get like friends with people or whatever, and we had the similar situations, I would end up using them kind of like as therapy, and I would expect the same. I'd be like, you know, I'll complain to you, you can complain to me, whatever.
Talking out the problems is actually healthy to lay out your environment and your situation that you're currently in, like a poker deck. I like a poker hand, like to say. But repeatedly talking about it and not making, it's like you and I want to build a house, but we don't have blueprints. What the fuck? You know what I mean? Like, we need blueprints. You need blueprints in life. Like you mentioned, like portfolio management, like Ray Dalio's all-weather portfolio, Tom's trend setting, you know, Trendstat was his company, and like going into the channels, and you have heuristics and you follow certain bands. Like, there's rules. And I make a strategy and I follow the fucking rules and I put in the fucking work. Most people, and then people bitch and complain like, oh, I don't have a job. Well, go fucking hustle on the side.
Yeah.
You know, like, fuck off. Like, oh, I can't. Then fucking do fucking something about it. Like shit.
Well, one of the things I can give people some actionable advice on that, because I caught myself getting in those modes, and I've like burned bridges, I guess, like from people previously that I made friends with. They were influential or whatever, and then I would just complain on Facebook about like whatever politic issue or some issue. I just complain, right? And then I would lose these friends in my social media, and I'd be like, what's going on? I'm a nice guy, like why are people not following? So then I realized that yeah, I didn't mean it, so it wasn't like I was doing it on purpose. So I totally I get someone in that mindset, and that's what actually helped me was doing journaling, like writing these thoughts down in journals, doing an investor journal where you're like, this is what I'm complaining about to myself. And like therapy also helps, but the very first step you can do is like journal your thoughts, especially if it's related to your position financially and your investments and like things you're thinking about. Journal it, keep a record, because not only is that therapeutic, it also prevents you from vomiting that stuff on social media and becoming known as like this toxic person that's like just negative. And it also helps you go back and look and see if you've learned anything. So your lessons may end up coming just through your journaling practice. So, and it's tough. Like I don't do it consistently, but when I find myself feeling those feelings again of like stress and back pain, like I physically feel it in my body, I start to journal, and then it helps me kind of formulate, okay, I've been through this before. Like I've learned lessons from other people doing these bad moves. And I don't know, it just helps focus me, I guess, and make the moves.
What gives you clarity?
Yeah.
Right. Cause you have,
it's not in your head anymore. It's like on the page, like your brain processed it.
The thing is, cause so how it work, how can I describe this? You have, your thoughts in your mind aren't described in words. They're described in
hamster wheels for me.
Well, no, that's the hedonic treadmill, but you feel it with your neurotransmitters and neurohormones. It's a feeling, right? So
I relate with that.
Right. So it's a negative feedback loop, right? So you're in the circumstances and you're feeling and articulate the feeling is like anxious and nervous. And
you totally feel, and no matter how much you think about it, you're not going to solve the issue by thinking. But like
this helps you articulate, right? You put the emotional, let's say, ambiance is happening in your body into actual articulation of words.
And then when you do that with a journal versus doing it on Twitter or social media, Facebook or something, it's the same effect, but you don't get any of the negative back at you. You don't get all the like reputation loss and like stereotypical, like, oh, this guy's just negative, whatever. It's like the thing with who's that president guy? Abraham Lincoln. He used to write, he used to like, there was a story, I think it was in How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Who wrote that again? Carnegie?
Dale Carnegie, yeah.
Yeah.
So President Lincoln was like during the Civil War, I think that was when he was president.
Yeah.
And there was a battle, and like, there was a bunch of battles, and his generals would sometimes like disobey his orders, right? And he would want to write these scathing letters to them to be like, I made an order, you have to take this order. But in his journals, he wrote about how he used to just go through the act of writing the letters, like what he really wanted to say to these guys, like just to really like chirp them out and like tell them how what he really thought of them and how negative he felt about them. So he'd write these scathing letters, and then he'd put them in his drawer. And after he died, they found all these letters, because what he would then do was just write like he would get all those feelings out, and then he would write like a better letter, like a more statesman-like letter, right? Because he realized that putting all these negative things out into like where someone else can receive it is going to come back at you negatively too. So he used that process of journaling to put his negative thoughts down, help him process it, and then he would send out something to the public or to the person or whatever that was.
Argue online ever. It's useless. I see zero value.
I still catch myself doing it. I'm still doing it.
I'll leave a post that might make people mad or angry, which is good. I want people to think, but I don't give a fuck. It's up to you. I'll just leave it. This is one of my thoughts. See you later.
Well, I just deleted the Twitter app off my phone this week because I found myself, because of the coronavirus stuff, like people were coming at me with all these like things that it was just triggering me. And in crypto, there's a lot of triggering stuff. So I deleted my Twitter app. I still have my Twitter account, but then I started to I'm just slowly over the last 3 months or so realizing that, a lot of these negative people on Twitter are just like over vocalizing their internal dialogue about whatever their coin is, or like in the Bitcoin thing, like you said, it's kind of like a religion. And that's actually,
this is why there's a lot of things I really despise.
But that's one of the things that is going to make it successful as well, because of the strong meme about Bitcoin.
Then just like cults, just like religion, it attracts the nuttier of the nuts of all fucking nut jobs. And you see it in crypto. Like, Jesus Christ, the fucking nut jobs out there.
And I'm starting to realize it more and more recently when I was kind of being public about, I'm thinking Bitcoin's going to go down because of coronavirus. I'm getting hammered with people like, you got weak hands, Bitcoin's not correlated, like, just totally not thinking and just negatively reacting to, oh, someone wants to sell Bitcoin, they must be a bad person. Like, dude,
logically driven, and there's no difference in them in a cult. And all these different camps of crypto and like move up, move down, it's a mental illness.
There's a lot of Bitcoiners,
fucking illness.
But there's like a lot of Bitcoiners like me that are totally neutral and rational and stuff. But then when I get triggered by a BSVer tweeting at me, I turn into one of those Bitcoiners.
Crypto, it's like, so what? Let BSV do whatever the fuck they're doing. I
know, but I'm just like so passionate about Bitcoin that I end up being rude or whatever to this guy that's like, Ripple's going to be the new Bitcoin, or whatever they're going to say to me.
I don't give a fuck.
Yeah, I got to take that attitude more.
Let them say whatever, let them believe whatever they want to believe. But everyone's ideologically driven. And they'll have incentive like move up, move down. Oh yeah, this coin. I'm like, you guys are all fucking retarded. There's like there's no rational thinking. There's no like logical, rational thinking. Like why are you behaving this way?
It's understandable. It's the meme of Bitcoin.
I understand it. No, I'm not talking about Bitcoin. I'm talking about the whole crypto space as a whole. Like even in theory, DeFi is going to do this and that. I'm like, what? Especially
once the money's involved, like once your identity becomes tied to the performance of the thing that you care about. If all your money was tied to Joe Biden or Donald Trump or Bernie Sanders, you'd see a lot more, and it's pretty visceral already, but you'd see a lot more like more serious reactions, right? But just because that's an idea, because it's not like your money's tied to it, but for people in crypto, like their money is tied to this thing.
Money doesn't change people. Money is an amplifier. So it amplifies certain ego traits that a person has. It amplifies, let's say, certain nuances of a person. And so I always say money, if you're a really good person, it makes you a really super good person, like a super awesome person. Always have insecurities about yourself, which a lot of people do. It amplifies that, and you become kind of like a prick because you're trying to make other people happy, right? Feed your own ego. And crypto is very transparent on this, and you see it all the time on Reddit and Twitter. It's like a lot of these people need psychiatric help. Like it's not healthy what they're doing. And if money's attached to your ego, you have a lot of fucking problem, man. Like right now, if I lost everything, I'd probably be happier, to be honest with you. 100%. Like, it's very similar what Gary Vee talks about. It's like, if you're that attached to money that if you lose everything and it drives you nuts, like there's something fundamentally wrong about your relationship to yourself.
No money, no problems.
Yeah. Listen, man, like if you have the skill set and you have a good support network and family and, you've gone through the ups and downs, like, you can rebuild, man. And statistically proven millionaires that go broke rebuild quickly because of their network and the blueprint they've done it before. But the very notion that if your money drops and that's how you determine success, or that's how you determine your happiness level, or that's what your ego is attached to, like that's your identity, seek help. Like do fucking ayahuasca, do 10 grams of shrooms, do some iboga.
Or at least try meditating and journaling before you do that.
hard for them. I need you to right? Because right now, man, like for me, I get fucking psyched. It's like, yo, I got nothing. I'm broke. Like, what the fuck do I do now? Like, this is fucking it, man. You know, the actual journey itself becomes fun. Like the outcome, like if I cared about money, man, I would have made 10 million times more money with stuff. Like I don't care. Like my attachment to it is like it's unlimited. They print it. Like you can make like it's shit. I'll just go to the
See,
Fed, print it over.
I was like that growing up. Like money just meant nothing really to me because we didn't have it. So money was just like a thing that we didn't value.
Yeah.
And the only reason we had money was just to buy like pizza pockets and sugar crisp. It was like
what I grew up with not sugar crisps. Cinnamon rolls, no. The ones that have the frosted one side is
Frosted Flakes? No, the
Wheaties.
frosted Wheatie ones.
Yeah, Wheaties, yeah.
Yeah, those were good.
Those are good, yeah.
Yeah.
But no, listen. At the end of the day, having a shit ton of money is amazing. That means you can help a lot of people. The people in need, you can help them out. But what I'm saying to most people, if that's the only identity that you have is that, you're going to run into a lot of psychological problems.
Yeah, and especially more amplified on social media when it's just like communities like fighting with each other basically, and you're doing like a tribalist sort of signaling everywhere. But you know, in one way that's what makes Bitcoin so successful already, because people have an activist mindset towards it, and you know, even though we went down 50%, right, since last month during the coronavirus crash, if you look at the blockchain analytics, you can see the hodlers just holding strong.
Yeah.
Like they didn't sell. The people that have been in this for more than a couple of years, they didn't get shaken by this, and we didn't need the markets to turn off.
I lost my wallet in a boating accident, so I can't.
So you can never move it.
Yeah, it's gone in a boating accident.
Good.
Yeah.
So in one way, it's like the ultra sort of like amplification of that tribalism of Bitcoin makes it so valuable long term, and in another way, it turns people off on social media. But thankfully, Twitter is only like 2% of the population anyway. So no matter how toxic Twitter is, it's like the majority of people are not going to be reached by Twitter. And people, especially people in Bitcoin Twitter, like anonymous trolly people in crypto, like the majority of the population is not going to see that. Just like the majority of the population is not going to see the Twitter, the Russiagate like accusations and everything that are going on in political Twitter. It's like that's a small minority of the activist people that are on Twitter actively using it every day. You know, that's not a representative of the real world.
I always ask this question: is like this, when a person is actively promoting a narrative, what skin in the game does that person have? And there's two answers to that question. Either they have skin in the game, so then you know their bias, or if they have no skin in the game, then I wouldn't even look at their comment or accept it. If you have no skin in the game, no repercussion or nothing to lose, jog on. Just jog on.
Yeah, well, some people, like, it's mostly in Bitcoin and crypto Twitter, like you can tell what skin in the game they have because they got it in their handle. But in politics and stuff like that, yeah, it's much harder to know really what are you motivated by when you're
politics.
Yeah.
You got to look at the psychology. It's mostly sociopaths who are driven. They want to control people.
No, I just mean like mostly in general, when people are talking politics on Facebook or on Twitter or whatever, it's hard to know what's the skin in the game there. Like, why this is a whole different conversation.
Social cred, though.
Social cred, probably. What's that called? Social signaling or whatever? Virtue signaling?
Virtue signaling. No, it depends. Some things are virtue signaling, some not. But more it's like social cred, positioning. Sometimes there's a job, right? So that's kind of their skin in the game, is they have a salary behind it if they're like a reporter or they're an analyst. So that's how they make their wages.
Yeah. Consulting, whatever.
I can't stand politics, man. It fucking hurts my head.
Going back to what you said like 10 minutes ago, though, before we got on this path, you were talking about the upcoming sort of strategy for where to have your assets allocated, and that's kind of where I'm not sure right now, and I'm kind of relating with what you said there about how this massive stimulus is going to devalue the purchasing power of the dollars that I moved into. Like, I moved my portfolio to weather the storm.
Long precious metals, very long gold, physical gold, not an IOU certificate or some kind of futures or something like that, but an actual bullion or what's it called, ingot. And Bitcoin too, like you said earlier, a small, tiny percentage of your total net portfolio. Cash, short term, medium term, who knows? It could be maybe like 18 months, like short term. I don't know how long term it is. American dollar. And those two, like if you're looking asymmetrical returns, gold and Bitcoin gives you those asymmetrical returns in case of something does happen. And then you price in, you will lose something. There's not all of your assets will go up. So it's like a pressure that you're dealing with, right? One's pushing down, one's going up. So you got to kind of balance it out. But those two I see definitely where you can move like liquidity in, like US dollar. And then like a startup.
Think of,
if you look at the last boom cycle, like 08 or even like the 90s, man, like fuck, man. I'm very bullish on investing in startups in this stage.
Startups or existing businesses that are like distressed because of cash flow cap.
Operators, man. Like I used to be in that industry part-time. Yeah, I spent some time in that industry buying different like online entities. If you don't have a whole operational team to take it over, it's pointless to buy. So you have to have the network of an operational team. So who you bring in? Are you bringing a new CEO in? Are you bringing you literally you're replacing the whole management of that distressed company?
Well, what about like investing in startups that, or maybe not startups, but businesses that maybe are just having credit crunches or just weren't prepared for this potential storm that's coming?
I think a lot aren't prepared, but still, if they're distressed and you're going to invest in them, you got to look at the operators, man. Like a lot of these companies are VC funded. I'm not the biggest fan of their model, but I understand their model. I think the whole VC game will change right now. I already see it with the funds kind of advise, and I talked to that it's winter. The powder has been closed for now. The checks being written are written on much more lower valuation. Thank fucking God, because these valuations are retarded. And I think there's opportunity when you say distressed assets. Right away to my mind, it's replace management. It's like I see some amazing opportunity here through my network of whether it's entrepreneurs have access to or other investors have access to, where I can take this distressed asset and actually put people in who are much better operators to kind of scale this out. That's kind of I would, as opposed to like pre-existing operators of the company.
I'm thinking more passively, I guess.
Well, it's not you're the one. If you're an investor, you're not operating those. So it's up to you to find the operators.
That's true.
You know,
I wish I could invest in like someone who would do that.
You can. There's networks. You find a CEO. Man, bro, we're in fucking Toronto. Any fucking like Jesus Christ.
Because I moved into cash, right? And I'm like, I like angel investing, and I have an entrepreneur streak, but I'm like, I don't think I want to go back into that hustle mindset, and I prefer to like educate people on Bitcoin. Honestly, I'm working on a book right now, so I want to
write $10,000 checks before even a deck is created, that early, like idea stage.
That's what you're interested in?
Yeah. 10 startups, 10K each of them at idea stage. Like literally you come
right. Yeah, that's pretty
the stage that I want. And it can be
like no valuation.
No valuation. It can be a safe. The pros and cons to a safe. There has to be some clauses that I agree upon, but a massive upside. Like even if one of them hits in the future, like huge upside.
Well, I like doing that as well. I like to invest in people and like startups, like really like bootstrap stage startups. That's what I came from, doing that. So I get the value of that. But I keep hearing about how in 2008 and other financial recessions and stuff, there were some really good like deep discount businesses to invest in. You know, people are saying the opportunity is going to be there. And that's partially why I moved into cash, because I wanted to weather the storm. I didn't want to go down 40% in my net worth because Bitcoin crashed and everything.
If Toronto real estate market drops 30% more, that's a fucking steal. It's cheap.
Yeah, but what would you invest in that situation if that does happen, right?
multifamily home units,
But
apartment.
would you invest in funds that are doing those things, or would you invest in the actual real estate?
I wouldn't do it myself. No, I would invest in the actual companies owning it. Yeah, yeah.
The companies owning the assets and stuff like that, rather than
Manage all that stuff.
yeah, exactly. It's like that's a lot of work to get into, right?
Get about it. I have experience in that. Like my family had a bunch of duplex. No, that's my dad retired early. Rest in peace. But we own a bunch of triplexes and duplexes down in Dundas and Kiel, like the whole block back in the day.
Okay.
And so we rented it out, old top floor. So I've gone through that ringer for that stuff. It's not. I don't want to do that.
I know. And thinking it on a macro level, like I've been watching, like I said, a bunch of Real Vision. Their stuff has been amazing.
Yeah.
And one of the guests recently was talking about the price of oil dropping and how, this is so bad for like Alberta. He wasn't talking about that, but it is bad for Alberta.
Barrel 2 days ago.
But just in general for the economy, just that thing alone could have caused this recession, because that drop in oil is pretty significant. And it's like, anyways, he was saying that there's some, his name is Steen Jacobson. He's from Saxo Bank. That's what his fund is.
Yeah, I heard of it. Yeah.
And he was saying that like some things to look at if you're wanting to buy distressed or discounted stuff, because you can't really invest in the oil unless you invest in the futures.
Yes.
But then there's these carry costs or something that I don't quite understand. But like if you invest at the oil price, the future at like negative 40%, and then it recovers over, say, 6 months, you actually didn't make the 40% because there's carry costs or some sort of fees or something that I don't know, something to do with the futures contract that the longer you carry it, the more fees are. So maybe your gain is only like 10% or something when it's a significant lift. But so you got to actually buy the assets. So like you can't actually buy the oil, like the Western oil, and store it in your garage for $5 a barrel. So he's saying to do things like buy oil tanker companies, or what was the other one he said, like oil shipping ETFs and stuff like that. Like,
so you're buying
kind
the
of
supply chain.
It's like the equity exposure to the drop. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like what you just said there. You wouldn't go and want to buy all these multifamily homes at a 30% discount because that's a lot of extra work and whatever. But if you found a publicly traded or even a private company that's in that space and their stock went way down, like then that might be a better investment because you're still getting in exposure to the asset at a cheaper value.
Or mortgage loans.
Like a fund that does mortgage loans?
I know, my buddy just started one right now, right before the crash. He has one in Toronto.
Oh, who's that, Richard?
No, Richard does solo stuff. So no, there's another guy. If you want an intro, I'll make an intro after this.
Yeah, your Richard interviews are good. I got to watch the latest one you did with him.
Yeah.
But anyways, I guess it's just like, if you can think about this, there's a lot of opportunity that's going to be for people that have the, foresight to be ready to buy. But this is like potentially the black swan here is the central bank response. It's not the coronavirus. Like we all saw that something was going to come pop the bubble, but
I think right now it's a perfect opportunity for the millennial generation because they're all broke and they have nothing, nothing to lose. Pick your head up from your ass. And this is all generations, by the way. I shouldn't just stereotype. And I'm a millennial, by the way, so I'm raging on myself. Pick your head out of the ass or out of your ass and make something, man. Like, fuck. Like, if you have nothing to lose, if you didn't lose an asset, if you didn't lose money and you're here, like, you're better positioned than people who just lost everything because emotionally, you didn't lose anything. You know what I mean? Like, there's a big emotional pain of, like, I just lost 3 of my houses and my job went down. It's like, I'm fucking depressed. As opposed to you are like, well, I'm still in my same position.
Yeah.
This opportunity, you have the emotional edge now. It's like, fucking go out there, man. Like, stop looking for secure jobs. That's fucking retarded. Stop looking for like handouts from the government. You're a moron. Go out there and fucking take what's yours. Like nothing. You're not incentive. No one owns you nothing. Nobody. No one's gonna give you anything. No one's gonna give you shit. Fucking make something out of your life.
It's good to have that philosophy, but it's also good to take what they're giving you. Because right now, that's changing. They're giving you lots of money, so you should go take it.
That money comes with conditions.
It does, but like
shit from the government. I won't.
Take the money and start a business.
All comes with conditions.
Combine both of those things, right? Combine your advice with because that's what I'm saying. Like that is capitalism. What you're talking about, that's capitalism. But we're not in capitalism anymore.
It's going into self-sufficient Stoic philosophy to make yourself anti-fragile. This has nothing to do with money.
That will benefit you even in this scenario that we're in right now. Even though that's not really what we live in right now, there kind of is a social safety net right now, and especially with this, they're just giving people money. So having that mindset will give you an edge, even though it's like
running businesses in the future will be better and easier if they really roll out UBI and all this stuff. A lot of people become complacent, and these UBIs do not come out. There's no such thing as free lunch, as Milton Friedman talks about. And if you misbehave or disobey or go against the conditions of the money handout, it is taken away from you and you're punished. And so you become a pleb, the ultimate pleb, a pleb serf, living on little breadcrumbs from the government, which 95% of people will do. And they live in their little matrix world, and they go in their little hedonic treadmill, and they're happy to be plugged in, and they don't want to take any risk. I did a Twitter post earlier today, and I wrote this, and this is specifically for Western nations. Reality is most humans are lazy in developed nations. We are accustomed to secure jobs with benefits. This has made us docile, domesticated, not to take risk. As Nassim Taleb states, the two biggest addictions are, number one, heroin, and number two, a salary. And so people have been conditioned to this salary, this secureness. There's no such thing in nature as being secure. We come from hunters and gatherers, man. We were fucking humans, man. Like, we went in the bush, and like, this is the human nature, man, of that, living on that edge. But yet we're pretty much domesticated dogs if we live how people live. And like, people need to snap the fuck out of that type of mindset.
Yeah. I think the Nassim said this was not a black recently on Twitter.
How can a virus be a black swan event when we knew exactly the virus is going to? So it's not a black swan event.
Or just that something was going to happen to hurt equities and pop the bubble. But he said the black swan is coming. So if you think that this pain so far, this hurt that went in the markets, most of us aren't feeling it yet. Most of us are just like, this is an extended vacation, really. This is just starting to get frustrating. Maybe if you got kids that are home, that you're like kind of frustrated. Maybe you're worried about your job, but
it's more important to connect with your community. Start doing more localism. I'm not a big on globalism. I'm a local, and control your food supply. Learn self-defense. You should have an armed, educated civilian population,
and just follow the advice that you just gave there. Like, don't be reliant, even though the government is handing out money right now, and even though there is a universal basic income.
Growing our own food, and we hunt. Like, I got no problem going hunting. Like, actually, one of my goals next year is like 95% of my food supply will be all for hunting. So I'm already set up. Crossbow hunting. I'm getting into the whole thing. So starting this summer, if Canada allows me to go hunting, depending on this fucking thing going on. But survival, man, no dependency, man. If you're dependent, and obviously there's circumstances like disability, so I'm not telling for everybody, but if you're bodied able to do it, but you're a little fucking crybaby, little wuss, I can't do anything. You need to wipe my ass. Give me some fucking handout. Don't bitch then.
Who are some good folks do you suggest people follow to like, because it's good to give the advice, right? But like, for someone like me who's just like a millennial video gamer, right? Like, I've been softened by like life, you know what I mean? Like, I'm doing keto and I'm working on the X3 bar. I'm like trying to, build muscle and stuff like that. But I've learned about conservative investment strategies, and I have held through lots of volatility and stuff. But at the time like this, where this could potentially be a different world coming into this could be a totally different paradigm. Who's a good person to follow? Like, what are some good ways for people to sort of like start changing their.
I think you mentioned earlier anything from like Stoic philosophies, even like I'm big on history, like reading history. Like my viewpoint comes from the fact like I come from a broken up country, Yugoslavia, civil war. I've lost 20% of my family members. My wife's family comes from Kuwait and Iraq and decimated in war. Like this is like my proximity, my experience. You know what I mean? I don't trust the government. I don't trust any of these people saying they're gonna do good for us. Like close personal friends and family dead in war. You know, it's like for experiences. And so for me, it's like I like to like really understand history. Like if you think this is tough, like imagine if going through war, World War II, World War One, Korean War, Yugoslavian War, Iraq War, you know what I mean? Like actually like real fucking danger when bombs, like my grandfather died World War II, bomb got dropped. My father never grew up, lost my cousin, I lost my uncles in the war. You know, like I can't tell you how much of my family members we lost in war, both World War II and Yugoslavian War. And so like a good book, you know it's a good fucking book to read about this? Sebastian Younger, Tribe.
Sebastian
Younger,
Younger,
wartime correspondent that went through the Bosnian War, Afghan War, Iraq War, and that fucking book is amazing. Amazing.
Do you think there's like, is there anything popping into your head now of like podcasts or YouTube videos or whatever to listen to that could like give people some, besides yours, but like give people some alternative perspectives on like how to have better skills and stuff coming out of this?
Skills, like, you know, if you
Just
guys,
like just like how to think, like the Joe Rogan podcast or something like that.
if proper thinking would be, I did a podcast with him. I think it's one of the most brilliant human beings I met is Dr. Christopher D. Carlo, Critical Thinking, the ABCDEF framework. Friends with Jordan Peterson, former U of T professor. So I've done a bunch. He's actually here in Toronto for like critical thinking. Other podcasts, I'm not big on. I for like geopolitics, Hidden Forces with Dimitri is a really good podcast. Anything by Naval, like all his short podcasts are fucking gold. Like very common sense, logical. A lot of his inspirations as well. Like one of his favorite people is J. Krishnamurti. Like his work is phenomenal. Like J. Krishnamurti, understanding the mindset, understanding human spirit and ego. Very deep philosophical stuff. But
You got a list of this stuff anywhere on your YouTube or
things in my head. I should make
you
more
should make a
videos.
list, man.
Yeah.
It's all good stuff. You're
What else?
speaking too fast for me to type it all.
David Goggins, but like that's more motivational. I'm not a motivational guy. I don't believe in
If
motivation.
someone that's watching this, make a list of all that stuff Amir just said, post it in the comments, and he'll hire you.
I'll hire you. Yeah, and timestamp this too. People bitch. I'm like, yeah, and I tell people, yo, motherfucker, you think I have fucking time to timestamp this shit? Get the fuck out of here. What else?
That's good stuff.
I can't think of anything. Like the Naval was good. Jocko Wilkins podcast.
Oh, is that good? I haven't listened to it yet.
Not all episodes, but like some are nuggets, like very, very good nuggets. And I like the guy, like straight to the point, you know, like take care of your shit, man, you know, like fuck.
Yeah, he had that phrase,
Extreme
be tougher.
Yeah.
Be tougher. That was just his like motto. He would just write it down. I think it was just be tougher.
But think about that, like our grandparents, like depending, like young men died in World War II, like storming the beach in Normandy. You know what I mean? Like, people like 200 million, like what was it, like 100 million, you know, like Russians and 40 million Chinese and 7 million in the Holocaust, World War One, World War II, Korean, all these wars, like serious fucking shit. But yet people are bitching now to get the what the fuck? What the fuck? And then people complaining about Amazon's taking too long. Yo, I'm gonna fucking slap you in the face as hard as I can. I'm gonna fucking slap you back to 1945 or 1943, right in the middle of the fucking war.
You know what?
I can't stand these little weaklings, man. Like you're irritated. Like it's like they're all soy boys or soy girl. Like I don't fucking know. Like weak-minded people.
Have you? You must have read Fourth Turning.
Oh yeah.
I gotta go through that again because it's even more relevant now than when it was a couple of years ago when I listened to it. I listened to it on Audible. It was great.
Amazing book. Yeah, I was recommended that book from Mike Dillard.
Oh, the marketing guy. Blue Ocean strategy or something?
No, I don't know Blue Ocean, but marketing guy. Yeah, sales guy, marketing guy. Yeah, great book. Great book.
Doesn't it feel like the fourth turning is kind of happening now?
It's natural. Like this is all progress. This is not progress, but yeah, you can call it progress. It is. There's a Buddhist saying, "It is how it should be. It is what it is. That's how it is." And you know, our parents. Well, I don't know about my parents. I'm like a free range kid. I just grew up by myself. My dad was like, "Do whatever the fuck you want." My mom's like, "Whatever." I did anything I want. I was the opposite of a helicopter parent. It's like free range, go in the world, piss off. There's cycles, you know what I mean? But it's not global cycles, right? So geography matters. Like people in the continent of Africa think differently, behave differently. Same with India, right?
Mm.
And so I think people in the West, at least a lot of millennials, I don't know. I'm just gonna say they're fucking weak, man. Like the general populace is weak. Like you see on the
So
streets,
it might be the Western fourth turning, but
physically weak. Like people are beasts and they have health issues. Like take care of yourself. Like eat right. You know what I mean? Like, and the physicality affects the psychology, right? Like take care of your fucking shit. You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
And so like we've become docile. We've become domesticated. And there's that saying like tough men create good times create weak men create bad times create tough men, or you can
Yeah, it's a cycle, right?
it's a cycle, it's a fractal.
And that kind of goes along with the fourth turning philosophy of all throughout history. These cycles keep repeating of the way the generations think, and
Well,
then
if you really want to dive in deep on this is Rene Girard's mimesis theory.
does he talk about it like generationally, like historically?
Historically has been going on.
Oh my god, man, I got so many things I need to learn about. Oh, I don't have enough time.
I made a video on YouTube, 5-minute video, summarizes the whole thing. Just type in Rene Girard mimesis, Amir, it'll pop up. And so we believe we think for ourselves. We really don't think for ourselves. An individual is intellectual. You and I can have a conversation, hold different opinions, and talk. As soon as you get a group together, it becomes groupthink, herd think. And so, is it really me behaving my way, or am I mimicking how Brad is behaving, and then Brad is mimicking how Richard is behaving, and so we're all mimicking each other, neurons. So we mimic and we start thinking like a herd, like a group, right? We're not individual thinking, and eventually we have this zeitgeist, a certain narrative, and there's a tipping point, as Gladwell talks about. So in Rene Girard's mimesis theory, it hits a precipice where in society things become too chaotic, and so like any tribe, the tribes need to split off. But he takes kind of like a religious framework where within mimetic theory, there needs to be an scapegoat. So you look at all throughout history, there's a scapegoat. In World War II, it was the Jews. Recently, with the United States going to Iraq, it was the Muslims and terrorists. There was witches, and then like the Spanish, it was like the Moors, and then like in Russia, it was like there's always an scapegoat. It's never your fault. It's never our fault. And so he calls this the cleansing of your sin, because it's not our sins. God,
Right.
it's never our fault. God forbid it's our fault, right? And so we need an scapegoat to sacrifice. And so once there's a scapegoat to sacrifice, and a scapegoat is a metaphor, it can be a group of people, it can be a system, it can be economic model, it can be anything. But this entity needs to be sacrificed for the greater good of society. Once that entity is sacrificed, then we continue. The new mimesis is then born, and the cycle just fucking repeats throughout history.
So what do you think it is now then? Based on that theory.
I think technology propagates and speed things up, and I think we are entering the very high tipping point. You see a lot of things around the world happening. You have older boomer generations who are passing away sooner. They're at that stage. You have millennials coming up who've never experienced our parents' type of living, where the dollar was stronger, where they could have assets, where they had a better quality of living per se, I would say, based on the dollar. And so I think where we're heading into a turmoil period of a transition. What that transition will be into, I don't know. I think it's going to be much worse. It'll be worse first and better afterwards. But like any transition, the importance is do not think like a group. Don't think in groupthink. Use rational thinking. I also made a video. I have a bunch of videos on YouTube. It's How to Think Clearly, the ABCDF model by Professor Christopher D. Carlo. And so use critical thinking heuristic models of, okay, I have this narrative. I've read a book, or I read a Twitter post, or read a Facebook post. And most people, like David Ogilvy said, spend 90% of the time in the headline because nobody reads the text. So most people, they take it at whim, like that's the gospel.
So true.
It's your job to use critical thinking models to really digest what are the assumptions, what are the biases, what's the context, how do you diagram this out, what's the evidence, what's the logical fallacies, and really dive into this. So I think the cycle repeats always, but it's really, we have better tools right now to kind of cut through the bullshit and clutter, and to kind of really kind of identify, I would say there's no binary thing as truth, false versus truth, or fake versus truth. It's a sliding scale, but these tools gives us a better lens to view things at a better perception. And then hopefully one of my big bullish things I am kind of focusing on is psychedelics. I think they will open up a lot of different possibilities in the future. I think more people need to do psychedelics, and I'm not proposing everyone go do it, depending on what kind of prescription drugs you're on and your circumstances. Obviously seek medical care and talk to professionals. You can reach out to MAPS, Multidisciplinary Association of Psychedelic Science or Research. They can kind of help you out with that. Rick Dublin runs that. And so I think psychedelics is a huge precipice. The zeitgeist is once again increasing from the 70s to now, where people are bringing it forward. It's in the public eye. People are talking about, legalizing.
But that's not like, psychedelics is not going to be like the next. And if you're talking about like mimetic theory and like the fourth turning and stuff, like that's just a tool that some people will use. Like, can you see something that's like a big shift that could happen in that mimetic theory or the fourth turning sort of thing, like some big thing that could change?
Full-blown socialism, government, everybody is government socialized. Yeah.
So the sacrifice in that scenario would be like privacy and capitalism, or just
I would double down and bet a lot of money on that. Majority of the world for a short period of time turns into full-blown socialism, a new form of government type of
surveillance technology,
capitalism, socialism mixed together.
I mean, and then what would happen then if that then a revolution happens when people start to realize what they gave up, or that it was the wrong move?
Revolutions always happen. Eventually what happens is Ouroboros. And I would make a contrarian bet the Ouroboros comes from China.
What if it's cloudy and you can't see it?
Like, fuck, I need to get a laser then.
Aurora Borealis?
No, Ouroboros, the snake eating its tail, is the oldest mythological symbol. And yeah.
Okay.
And the Ouroboros, so snake eating its own tail. I would make a contrarian bet within our lifetime that we see some type of massive shift in China internally.
They mean like a political breakdown? Communism breaks down in China?
Yeah. In our lifetime, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if it didn't happen because of this, what would it take?
This could be the second last straw that broke the camel's back.
Yeah.
Straw can happen. Who knows? There
was a lot of dissidents.
But listen, yeah, I think United States and Canada and I think Europe is stagnant. Nothing's fun about Europe. It's pretty much communist continent anyways. Not all of Europe. You can go back home where my parents are from, Bosnia. It's the most libertarian country in the world. There's no taxes.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah. It's insane. It's no
Turkey just went full dictatorship.
No, just Erdogan. He's been doing it forever. What are you talking about, man?
I mean, they just went straight there though with the coronavirus.
Same in Hungary. Hungary just put in like superpower laws.
Hungary, not Turkey. Sorry.
Yeah. That's not a surprise. Same thing when they were communists. They're the same. They have the same zeitgeist. No, but like I was saying, Bosnia right now, like it's small, tiny. Government's highly corrupt. You can do whatever the fuck you want. There's no taxes. Everything's counter markets. Like literally, it is like whatever the fuck you want to do.
Is it like at least a good healthcare system there? Like, do they have paved roads?
Bro, if you want to go off grid, bro, and live almost for free and be loaded with with some kind of ammunition and small militia, and you want to live off the land like really healthy and have solar panels and run a business there, fuck.
I think I'd be too paranoid if everybody was like loaded up with
Well,
guns
yo,
and stuff.
the first so-called libertarian anarchist country is there. Well, it's not really a country, but they have Liberland. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah, yeah, Liberland or something.
Yeah, it's right in Croatia and Serbia on the border. The guy bought
Oh,
it.
okay.
Well, I don't know who recognizes it, but he says it's a new country, so we'll see what happens. But I think a lot of these post communist countries have went through it. I think there's some opportunities in the future because they've experienced it firsthand. I find it hilarious when people talk about socialism, communism, like, you fucking demented. Like, here, my parents came from here. We escaped there to here for a reason. You know the gulags.
I don't think people understand when they talk about socialism that the pure like fundamental socialism really turns into dictatorship.
Always does. Absolute power corrupts absolute law, because in socialism there's only one party. That's it.
Yeah.
Party.
But I think they think it's more like Canada or Finland or something like that. That's a social democracy.
Socialism is the state controls the means of production and centralized planning of every aspect of society.
Yeah, that's what it turns into.
Which United States is heading, where like the Treasury and the Fed's going to buy equities in companies.
Well, they're not doing that yet. They said they're going to buy corporate bonds. They're not yet going to buy the equities straight off the markets.
Well,
but if the market goes down another 15-20%, they're going to they already said they're willing to do whatever it takes. They have unlimited money, unlimited power. So they'll buy equities. They'll stop short selling. They'll turn the markets off for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I don't know.
But right now they're not yet.
Sit back, enjoy the ride. That's how I say. Just have a proper mindset, get ready for things, and be ready to act when you have to act.
And then if none of that happens, if like they are able to stave off any real bad problems, then you just kind of got yourself more reliant. You became more skilled and more reliant on yourself, and probably created value for you and your friends and your family.
100%, man. Like, that's the thing. People need to just do more things. Like, when people say, "Oh, I need to find my purpose," what the fuck purpose? You don't have no purpose in life. Yeah, you experience it. You guys can Google. There's many sermons from the Dalai Lama talking about purpose. Purpose doesn't exist. Experience exists. And there's a sermon where he holds a flower, and only one person in the crowd of the monks acknowledges and understands, well, how can a flower have purpose? No, the flower has life. They call it the Buddha nature. The flower is experiencing self. It's not like the flower thinks, well, am I a flower? No, I'm just being a flower. When a bird flies throughout the trees and moves like this, right? The bird isn't thinking, oh, well, I'm going to move my wing left and right, and I'm a bird. No, the bird is just being a bird. It's in its Buddha nature, and we all have Buddha nature. And so when humans are thinking, I'm going to find purpose, it's like, what you're really asking the question is like, what is your human nature? You're looking for experience of living. Like, we're nomadic creatures. Like, we used to travel the world, and the reason why we're here, because we're nomadic. We used to hunt, and we used to gather. We used to experience crazy fucking things within our environment. Now we're lazy as fuck and experience nothing. We experience waking up, going to our car, going to the subway, going to work, coming back home, and fucking that's it, and doing one vacation every 3 years. Give me a gun and let me shoot myself in the fucking head. You know what I mean? Like, this is living. That's what you call living. That's not human living. No wonder everyone's fucking depressed. So people need experience. Like, do more things. If you're thinking of fucking doing anything, do it. Like, you want to go dance school. You want to go hunting. You want to build a business, well, start fucking building a business. Go to the fucking gym. Do more things in life. The many reasons why I am who I am. I've done a million things, man. Bro, I've been to jail. I've been shot at. I've been stabbed. I've OD'd twice. I've had a million different businesses. I've failed businesses. Like, I've done it all, and I'll keep on doing crazy fucking things. Like, this is the very nature of living, like experiencing amazing things and getting feedback and building yourself up. And so people live mediocre lives, and they're stuck into this until they burst out of their fucking little hedonic treadmill and realize that the way to Joseph Campbell would call it the blister, then the bliss. Following your bliss. First, you need the blister, then you need the bliss. It's a mistake because originally he said follow your bliss, but he changed it later on because people are misinterpreting. He said follow your blister. You need the pain first. You get to success, right? Like you can't just jump from A to B. Oh, I'm an expert. Like get the fuck out of here, man. You need to go through the process and enjoy the process, enjoy the journey of what you're trying to accomplish. It's never the end. It's always a journey. Focus on that journey. And that's what people need to do. They need more experience in their life to really focus on that journey. And then that's how you understand yourself better. That's how you get more insight into who you are. And that's how you get to experience the world more. Abraham Lincoln had a saying. He's like, it's not the years in your life. It's not the number of years you live. It's the life in those years that matter the most. Like there's people out there who are 40 or 35 or say 25 who've lived 7 lives. To me, that person has lived 7 times more fulfilled life than somebody who's 70 who's done the same fucking thing and never taken a risk in his life.
Well, it's a good thing we've got virtual reality because I don't know if I want to be getting stabbed.
I was young. Crazy.
I get it.
Stab wounds right there. Yeah, I was crazy young guy. Crazy. I don't give a fuck.
Yeah, I mean, I've been stabbed with a virtual lightsaber.
Oh yeah.
In Beat Saber.
Yeah. Well, I used to do laser tag before, and they had those like when you get hit, they'll like not shock you, but vibrate.
The haptic feedback.
Haptic feedback, yeah. So they should have like a shock one for like VR, where like if you actually get stabbed, it shocks you.
They got them. They're coming out.
You have them?
They're coming out with them. Yeah, there's like Indiegogos and stuff like that have those.
Oh fuck that.
So you will be able to experience all those crazy things just virtually. If you don't want to risk your life.
My thesis is I'm going old school, man. My goal is to live on a compound on a farm and completely be off grid and away from the city and disconnect away from technology as much as possible.
People are certainly like it feels like people are breaking out of the patterns, right? Because of this lockdown. And like I'm seeing my neighbors out more talking to each other and playing with their kids and stuff like that. So it definitely feels like we've been in this convenience, complacent bubble, even though like a lot of people are struggling financially, but they're just getting by and we have conveniences. And this coronavirus thing is totally changing. Like whether it's good or bad, it's going to be different. Like when we come out of this post-coronavirus situation, things are going to change and hopefully for the better, like just people be more connected and all that stuff.
Yeah. There's a saying, prepare for the worst and hope for the best.
Yeah.
And I think I'll leave it at that, man. We've been jamming for 2 hours and 15 fucking minutes.
It's good chat.
Yeah, man.
I love listening to your brain dumps on all these books and all that stuff that you have.
I can ramble on for hours.
I can ramble about Bitcoin. You can ramble about the things you said. I was trying to name a couple of the books, but you said so many of them. Yeah, we do need a summary.
Yeah. I'll make a list.
I did read one of your books, a couple of your book suggestions that you post, and they're always good. Every book suggestion you have is good. The Never Split the Difference was the last one I read that you suggested. Okay. Awesome book.
Yeah.
All right, that's good. Yeah, we'll end it there, and you'll put out your Amir book club for the coronavirus.
No doubt, brother. Always wish you the best. Talk to you soon.
See ya.